Do you know much about the Wilkes brothers?
I know them just vaguely as one of the powerful and wealthy people who make life a lot harder for us, but beyond that, not really, no.
From what I was from the research I've gathered and from the reporting that I've seen a lot of people do, they talk about how they're kind of like these oil fracking billionaires who, what I think is one of the keys to the success of right wing tubers, which is that they have a lot more private funding than the left ever will. You
I
know, the
wish I
left.
had private funding. Jeez.
Yeah, I know, right? Where's your George Soros check? You know.
Yeah, we all
um,
joke, but in reality, money is really hard to come by on the left, you know? People talk about
yeah,
George Soros and like, not Warren Farrell, God, Warren Buffett,
Warren Buffett.
right, being left-leaning, but like these guys do not engage in like the committed project of funding media for the left. They not really. Sometimes I
No,
think sometimes they donate to like more establishment like liberal or charity causes, stuff that's easier to write off for charity case, but for tax purposes. But with regards to like the opportunity for people to blow up on YouTube, this just doesn't happen to the left. You can go right now. Who here has heard of Abigail Shapiro? I'm kind of asking my audience here. Well, I guess I've talked about her, so everyone here would have, but she's not a large YouTuber. Everyone on YouTube knows who she is, though, because she has probably hundreds of thousands of dollars pumped into advertising her channel. It gets shown everywhere, all over the place. And she's the sister to Ben Shapiro, of course. So, there's that money. I don't
mhm.
know if the Wilkes brothers are funding her, or if Ben's funding her, or if it's just family money or what, but that stuff is really hard to come by on our side. Like ContraPoints. You know Contra, I assume?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, ContraPoints doesn't
I
have
love her
that.
content.
Yeah, Contra's huge. Very, very big. And where does she get that size from? The quality of her content, you know? Um, she doesn't get high profile debates or discussions with huge like lefty or liberal commentators to like fund or promote her. She gets a couple of news articles every once in a while, but they're usually written by people who have a sincere interest in the stuff she produces. There's not money behind
Yeah,
the scenes there. It's just another person in another New York apartment doing everything they can to make content. The way conservative circles just pump money into their projects is, well, it's enviable. It's something we need more of, frankly. It's why I get so mad at like lefties online who get mad when commentators make a lot of money. Like what we
yeah,
we
yeah.
can use that, potentially. That can be very beneficial to us. Confirmation bias is a well-known, I guess I would call it a cognitive deficiency in human beings that fits into our tendency to identify patterns. Essentially, if we have a set of beliefs, we will look for information which confirms those beliefs, and we are more likely to recognize and internalize information that supports our argument rather than contrary information. Now, everybody falls prey to confirmation bias to some, extent or another,
Sure.
but there are certainly groups like political parties which will prey on it more often than others. That's definitely the case.
What can you tell us about the way corporate media manufactures our perception of the world, manufactures our consent?
Yeah, so funnily enough, this is something that I feel like liberals are worse at recognizing than conservatives. Because if you ask a conservative, they'll say, yeah, mainstream lib media is conditioning people
Right.
to, yeah, et cetera, et cetera. Like they know, even though they fall prey to it with their own media sources. But I feel like a lot of people have this sort of innate trust in the impartiality of evidence which is brought to them. Now, one thing is true. Generally speaking, mainstream news sources don't lie. They lie very rarely compared to other ways of getting your
Mhm.
information. YouTubers will lie to you way more often than CNN. What they do is they
Sure.
lie by omission. They will only present information that fits within the narrow range of acceptable discourse, subtly avoiding the presentation of information that might lead their audience towards different conclusions. So while they do have a crack team of fact checkers, and for the most part, they will get things wrong way less than other media sources, there is still a very deliberate effort, and sometimes just a product of implicit biases, that leads to a cultivation of the information that reaches you. You can see
Mhm.
this going on all the time. The news media makes its choices on what to cover based largely on what will get them the most clicks, what will get them the highest ratings. And that's how any profit driven news source is going to function. I mean, that's their job. They have to make money for their investors. And what that means is that stories about crime stories about sensationalist panic, stories that keep people scared. These will always get more and more and more clicks. Stories that are good for advertisers as well. But the story of the largest labor strike in human history taking place in India, niche interest, maybe not a huge deal to the average American, so less coverage. And we get a very biased perspective of the world as a product of that. A biased understanding of other countries, a biased understanding of crime rates within our own, and a biased understanding of the partisanship in our own country. Yeah, I'm of two minds on this one. Because the main issue seems to be the problem is that while both sides do primarily drive their clicks and their ratings based off of like look at what the other side's doing, the problem is that the right is in another reality and the left is in this one. It's true that CNN, ABC, MSNBC, and what have you constantly perpetuate this social divide, but they're on the right side of that rift, you know? Like it's like we're all on an iceberg and there was a split and like the Republicans are drifting off towards a maelstrom off in the horizon, you know? And like we're standing on solid ground and we're calling out to them. The worry I have is that ignoring how insane Republicans are these days, like completely, absolutely beyond the pale crazy, will normalize their ideas somewhat. But it's important to remember, Republicans are like 35% of the population. Independents and left-leaning people are by far the majority, and I'm comfortable claiming the independents because they seem to lean left on a lot of social issues that Republicans have defined their base by galvanizing themselves against. So they are a loud minority. And while I don't like the social disunity, man, I gotta say, the right does a lot of stuff that's really worthy of like constant condemnation, you know? Like, what does the left do?
I would
like,
agree with you.
The right's like, oh, there was a high school where a assistant teacher came in and said that America's founding was racist, and that gets like 5 days on Fox News. Oh, gender neutral potato head, and that gets like a week on Fox News, you know? And meanwhile, like the left-leaning news sources are like, look at what the right's been up to. Here they attempted a coup. Here they are getting arrested for child sex trafficking. You know, here they are denying the most fundamental legal and civic realities of our country. It's like, well, maybe that's deserving of a little bit more attention than what the Republicans are doing, you know?